must gather your party before venturing forth.
Oh, heck. Hello. Welcome, Raiders. Oh my goodness. Let me crunch your data. Oh my goodness. Hi. Chika Shimane. Hi, welcome. I had just switched over to the chatting screen. Oh my goodness. Hi, welcome. How are you doing? Who there? Camerson, welcome. And Chika Shimane, welcome. How are you doing? How Hypnospace Outlaw? I have no idea what that is. That sounds mystifying. How are you? Welcome. Also, hi Runia. How are you doing? Welcome here as well. Oh goodness, this is a bombastic start. Hi. Who those of the I can't even speak anymore. To those who might not know me, hello, my name is Chichin. I am a bard VTuber. I do a lot of TTRPG stuff. And yeah, welcome. Today I have no idea what I'm gonna do. I don't usually stream on Fridays, but I want to make it I usually stream on Fridays, so we'll see. Hi. If any of the raiders need to like go rest or so, please do. But otherwise, yeah, thank you very much. For hopping in right as I switched over from my starting screen. So yeah, how goes? Welcome. Yeah, like I said, I'm not 100% sure what I'm gonna do today. Which is why the category right now is just chatting. What I used to do on stream is I would talk about RPG design or things like running RPGs, and I do want to bring that back. So we might veer into that today. As time goes on. It's just I didn't sleep very well. It tends to happen. Insomnia is a thing, and I'm out of sleep meds, so I'll have to see how I do in the future. But that being said, yeah, I do want to dedicate a stream once again to talking about RPG design. I used to also design live on stream. That's definitely also a thing, and I haven't done that in a while. I haven't done that in a couple months because work schedule and insomnia induced sleeping mess has prevented me from properly committing, that's the word, committing a day to streaming like this. But here we are. So yeah, that might be what's happening. Yeah, if TTRPGs sound like your jam, you're very welcome to stick around. I also try to play them on stream with a couple people. It doesn't always work because scheduling a whole bunch of people every week that are scattered all over the world is difficult. So I fully understand when life gets in the way. We've had a couple of sessions here and there, and I'm not giving up hope. So yeah, that might return at some point. Also, it's Lunar New Year. A bunch of us are busy with stuff, including me. So yeah. But yeah, let me turn up some other music for the moment. Music going? It is going. I have no mouth, but I must too. Oh no. Hi, Vitalina. How are you doing? Welcome, welcome. Yeah, we're not doing Baldur's Gate today. Baldur's Gate is on Tuesdays. At least my Tuesdays. I do realize that in like the US, for example, it's the night of the day before. So when I say today is Friday, please do realize that it is actually Friday over here where I live. It's no longer Thursday. I am in the future, and the future is a bit cold. So yeah. we'll do. I do those weekly, which means it does drag out, or not drag out. It does take a long time, but you know. I'm more thinking about talking design and such, or possibly trying out interesting games to talk about their design specifically. I have to see. There's also a thing, I don't know how, if that is a thing I can do, which is look at TTRPGs, like printed, not necessarily printed. PDF is also fine, but like look at a book and then talk about it. Like, I don't know how much publishers or designers are okay with some rando on the internet just kind of taking their book and displaying it to everyone, right, on stream. I don't know. I don't like a flip through, for example, or just reading passages, looking at that. So I have to do a bit of research on what like the general stance of that is. Especially if the rules are not also available for free online. Like if the rules are available for free online, like officially for free, like if there's an SRD or something, then I'm gonna say, okay, fine. Anyone can look those up. And then I can use those to talk about the game and its design and what I think. But if you have to buy the book, then I wouldn't want to take that away. Right. Sorry, had to raid and run, had to help with groceries. Yeah, no problem, no problem. That's very understandable. There's always something that comes up. But yeah, welcome. Yeah, I saw you were playing Hypnospace Outlaw. What the heck is Hypnospace Outlaw? I'm intrigued. So I've never heard of that game before, and it sounds I don't know actually. But yeah, how are you doing? It's a 2000s internet sim where you are a mod on the internet. Oh, back in the Wild West of the internet. Okay. Right, I can imagine that would be pretty wild. Yeah, dang. That sounds interesting. The good old 2000s internet. It was a different time back then, definitely. So the internet is accessed through a headband. Kind of like VR, and some wild stuff happens. Ooh, okay, that's why Hypnospace, I guess, because you're like more directly hooked into the internet than just with a screen or like a monitor and a mouse and such. That sounds a bit like um the 80s view of the internet of like the 2000s, kind of like Shadowrun. How Shadowrun imagined the internet of the 2000s would be, or like slightly later 2000s. So that's wild. Also, sorry, I am yawning a lot because I didn't sleep very well. Um, it's a thing. It's definitely a thing. It's like I lie down to go to sleep, and then I lie there for an hour or two before I actually manage to fall asleep because, my mind does not like me. Mood, I didn't either. Oh no. Yeah, eh, it's not great. But I can't keep sleeping. I have to get up. Yeah, otherwise my entire day is gonna be messed up, and then I'll never get to sleep on time again. And eh. So yeah, I planned to to start stream 2 hours earlier or so. So like, oh, when it comes to sharing TTRPG book stuff, I believe the general rule of thumb is don't show everything and nothing is permanently up. At the very least, that's how I'm playing it and haven't gotten any messaging to do otherwise, despite it prodding. Oh, and no making money off of it. From what I can tell, Twitch revenue doesn't count. Oh, okay. So yeah, the make no money off it makes sense, right? I cannot take someone else's work and just like put it up on screen and be like, now pay me. Um, but nothing is up permanently. So like no VODs? Is that what you mean? Um I'm also thinking that I could talk about the game without actually showing. VODs usually expire. Aha, not if you load them up on YouTube. Which I need to do, holy heck. I have a bunch that are about to expire and I need to check if they've uploaded properly to YouTube. Which is why I don't want them to expire. Let me see. Okay, that one uploaded. Let me upload the next one. Just I'm behind. I'm up on uploading my VODs because one of them got messed up. Um, so let me just do that on the side before I forget. Because yeah, on Twitch they do expire. Um, depending on if you're affiliate or so, they last like a month, something like that. 5 days expiring. When was that? December. 2 months. Yeah. So if you're an affiliate, they last 2 months on Twitch, which is pretty generous. Huh. Um, right. But if you upload them on YouTube, they last longer. So that's what I do. Um, I guess if I do that, I could blur out the pages manually for the VOD. If I want to go there, right? Uh, but I don't know, something to think about because I do want to talk about at least some ideas that some games have, right? Especially when it comes to mechanics that are not as well represented in many games. So things like mechanics for long, like bigger skill projects or such, or especially social mechanics. There are some games that have very interesting social mechanics. Burning Wheel, Draw Steel has one, for example, and some other games might have as well. That I Masks that I'm looking at right now has not necessarily social mechanics, but it does have an interesting way of influencing other people and such. So that's that would be something I might want to explore. But yeah, it's I also don't want to just expose the book for free, right? Because that is not good for any of the writers, designers, and such of the actual book. So yeah. Um Hi Ray Demon. Welcome, welcome. How are you doing? We're just kind of talking about what to do with the new up and coming Friday streams that I'm having right now. Doing good. That's good to hear. Hold on, I'm putting on some socks right now. It is a bit colder than I thought. So yeah. Um but yeah, I'm the the reason I'm struggling so much with coming up with ideas for a game design stream. Has it been raining where you're at? Not really. No, it hasn't. It's been. I mean, it's kind of cool-ish for here. Um, but it hasn't been raining or so. Um, well, I guess a little bit here and there, but not really big. Hello, Pettigrew. It's going to snow all night in Iowa. Oh my goodness, so weird. It was in the 60s today. Oof. Oh dang, yeah, the swings are wild. And I hope it'll be safe. That you'll all be safe. Um, it's going to snow all night. Uh, yeah, that's one thing we don't have here at all, snow. But seeing as how February is slowly ending, that does mean that typhoon season is gonna come back, which is a thing. Um, actually, hold on. Let me open up my my board program, which is just Krita. Ugh, I have way too much stuff here. Hold on. Uh, where do I have? Design workshop. There we go. Do I not have a blank? Uh-oh. Uh-oh, I don't have a blank word. Okay, let me save this as Okay. All right. Um, let me see. Can I? Aha. Aha. There we go. If my mouse would cooperate, that would be amazing, but it's not cooperating. Oh my goodness. Aha, there we go. Okay, so this is nice. So yeah, this is how this stream usually looks. Where I talk about game design and such, but I don't have any topics right now because I'm mainly stuck on my own design at the moment. So that's something I need to work through on my own before I can do something with it. But possible topics. It's been a while since I've done something like this. Writing on my pad, my drawing pad is a bit okay. Bit out of practice. Oh my goodness, Jason. Hello. Welcome. Nice to see you here. How are you doing? How goes it? It goes okay. It goes a bit tired. Hanging in there, aren't we all? Yeah, it goes tired. I didn't sleep too well. Oh, I meant to start stream 2 hours earlier than I did. But then the big sleep came over me, like I just couldn't. It took me way too long to fall asleep, and then I didn't get enough, so Yeah, I know that feeling. It's but right now what we're doing is we're looking at possible topics. So I usually don't stream during this time, but I want to. Right? What it currently looks like, my stream schedule is that I stream on Tuesdays, at least my Tuesdays. Which is right now is Baldur's Gate 2. I had a flare of a sleep disorder for over a week, still struggling to claim a normal sleep schedule. Oh no. Then I hope that you'll be able to recover soon. That oof. Yeah, that really sucks. Like sleep being messed with is one of the worst things because you're like, I'm not doing well, so I need to rest to recover, but I can't actually recover. So that's it sucks. It sucks. I'm getting there. I'm at 1 a.m. bedtime from 4 a.m. Oh, that's good. That's really good. Yeah, I was same. I used to go to bed at like 3 or 4 a.m. And then at some point it's like I cannot continue this. And now I'm up to like between 1 and 2, which is better. It's still not the best, but yeah, I feel that it's a slow but steady struggle, slow but steady progress. So yeah, definitely. So yeah, let's hope we can all get there and get a better sleep schedule. The problem is for some days I have to get up early because I have work in the morning. I don't usually have work in the morning. I usually have work in the afternoon and evening. Because I teach. I teach basically evening classes, right, to adults and such who don't have time in the mornings for class because they need to work. So that's when so in the afternoon and such, I work afternoon, evening. But every now and then I have a class in the morning and I need to get up early and teach. And that's really just I have to adjust my sleep schedule for this one day and then it crashes again. Languages are, yeah, I teach German. Exactly. If forced within a week, meds help with that. I don't recommend doing it that fast. Oof. Yeah. I also got some meds. I got some sleeping pills. I used them all up. So that's the thing. I may be able to get melatonin from a pharmacy without a prescription. Like sleeping pills you cannot get without a prescription. But melatonin you probably can. So if I have to, I may need to resort to a bit of help like that. Wie geht's? Ich weiß nur ein wenig Deutsch. I don't have the accented character. That's not bad. That's not bad. Nice. Where did you learn? Oh, Benadryl available OTC is what I've used. Benadryl, is that? I don't think we have that here. I know a lot of people keep mentioning like Benadryl or like NyQuil or Valium or something. Is that a thing? There's all these names and I don't actually know what they are because I never grew up in any country that uses those names for medication or those brands for medication. So Benadryl is a trade name for diphenhydramine. Okay, I need to check diphenhydramine. Diphenhydramine. Valium is RX only in the USA. It's a benzodiazepine. Pharmacology is something that I'm like it's a rabbit hole. It's one of those things that pops up every now and then on my like autism special interest radar, and then I dive into it. But there's so much. There's so much. So yeah. It's a whole world onto itself. It really is. It is fascinating. It's absolutely fascinating. But like, usually your entrance point is through some drug. Then you start researching this drug, and within the first paragraph, there's like 50 terms that you don't know where to sort because they're like chemical compositions or like how exactly it affects with the physiology or like this organ, that hormone, blah blah blah. And it's like, oh my goodness, that's so much. How do I enter this field of knowledge? As well as JD, MDD, SAD. Oh my goodness. I had to learn about it due to having Crohn's. Oh no, and having to know interactions. Oof. Okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So I was happy once all that was searchable online. Yeah. Which is also like the sad thing about a lot of textbooks, especially things like medical textbooks, is they're so expensive. And I don't know if local libraries have any in English. They probably have them in Chinese, but that's such high level Chinese that I cannot do anything with it. I never learned what's the term? Not high level. I don't want to say high level, but like I never learned college level Chinese, if that makes sense, right? Like the scientific technical way of using it. So I will not be able to deal with textbooks without a lot of additional work. Like, I can read German or English textbooks, scientific textbooks, just fine because I learned that and I trained in that. But Chinese, no. And then public libraries here, I don't know if they will have appropriate books in English. We'll have to see. They are horribly expensive, yes. An XGF, a doctor gave me her gastroenterology textbook. Oh, that's cool. I looked at the price a couple years ago. Today it's $150. Yeah. As you know, technical use of language is often very different than the conversational. Exactly. It's I mean, that was part of what I studied. Right? That is the topic that definitely came up. Also because it's very, very relevant for a university context, which is where I ended up working. Hold on, the music is a little bit loud for me right now. It's distracting me from my thoughts. Yeah, so I mean, I'm fine with conversational Chinese. And I can kind of sort of explain things or listen to explanations of things as long as they don't start using technical vocabulary or technical phrasing. Which is, oh. With other conversations we've had, I assumed you already knew. Glad I was right. Yeah. Which is a big issue, actually, in education, at least in Germany, for example. Because a lot of teachers and professors for various subjects that are not directly language, they don't realize, they're not aware of the fact that you need appropriate language skills in order to engage with the material as it is presented at universities and such, right? And then they just keep passing the blame back and forth, right? It's like schools say, yeah, no, learning technical language is the job of universities because that's where you'll use it. And then universities are like, yeah, no, properly preparing students to engage with university material is the job of schools. And then they just keep blaming each other, and then the kids just get hung out to dry. So a lot of kids, I say kids, come to university and are completely ill-prepared, and they just cannot deal with learning anything, studying or reading anything, because they never learned how to parse, how to read, how to parse, how to think about technical texts, right? Things that you find in university level textbooks or essays or things like that. Even a lecture, right? Even a lecture from a professor is bound to have a lot of these, not just vocabulary, but also phrasing and such. And then, yeah, and then they just quit, which doesn't look good for the universities. But the university solution is to blame the schools. So awesome. I actually cringe when people try to use only technical terms, even when I understand. That's fair. I often forget that I'm aware of that because I studied AI and natural language processing. Had to consider these things. Yeah, a lot of people, especially like STEM teachers and STEM science professors and such, they're like, yeah, no, look, I teach math. The only thing you need to know for math is numbers, right? But then they don't realize that teaching how the numbers work, to put it very, very basically, requires you to understand the language it is used to explain to you, right? I learned only the street slang of my target language. I mean, that's a goal, honestly. Street slang is also, oh my goodness. Learning that is very, very impressive because no textbook teaches that, basically. So that is a goal definitely. As well, since I read The Hobbit, I've had an interest in writing systems and learning German shortly before interest in languages. Nice, nice. Yeah, I definitely had to deal with that because I was working at the language center of my university slash grad school, and it's the way like the people in leadership positions are so flippant about their ignorance. Like, I wanted to make you eat a printer or something. I don't know if that's a saying, but you know what I mean, right? It's like, oh my god. Also, about all the blame shifting, I have this opinion: there's no blame worth assigning if it can't be reassigned to another. uh, yeah, the problem with that is because the schools and the universities just um shift blame back and forth to each other, and no one wants to pick up the slack and no one wants to take on the responsibility. The kids don't learn it, right? Because no one wants to teach it. I'm joking. Yeah, I got that. But yeah, it is a crap situation. It's an endless cycle. No problems get solved exactly. And like chasing numbers and chasing money is also a big issue. Like, speaking of foreign languages, universities, a lot of universities, at least in Germany, and that I know about, really want to have international students. They want to attract international students because that looks good, right? That looks really good. Saying like, oh, we are a very international university, and especially in Europe right now, becoming international is like this big trend. It's this big buzzword. Oh, we're an international institution and such. That no one has any idea what it means, but it sounds cool, right? So what do universities do? They're like, oh, let's go attract a lot of international students to come here for grad school, etc. And how do you attract a lot of international students? Do you make the application process super easy? They'll figure it out. Do you give them a lot of guidance on living in Germany? Who cares, man? No, what you do is you lower the language requirements necessary. Right? If you really want to study in German, you probably need a C1 level of German, right? Which I'm gonna get to the comments, but yeah. Let me just finish this thought. So the European Commission has sorted, you may have heard of this before, foreign languages into 6 levels: A1, A2, B1, B2, C1, C2. And the higher you go, the more proficient and the more technical language you can use. And generally, from my understanding of how the system works and from my experience of teaching these levels and looking at textbooks of these levels and such, if you really want to study and work technical work in a language, you need C1, because that's where all the nuances, all the really complex texts, all the small like technical phrasing and such, like a lot of passive voice, a lot of, a lot of these things that people love to put into technical texts that you'll never see in casual conversation, that's where they all appear and are explained and taught. B2 is passable. You could do with a B2 if you then take some supplementary lessons in the target country. What do universities do if they want to attract new students? Oh, you only need A2. A2 is good enough. And then you can come study. And then they're surprised that half of the international students just quit after one semester because they cannot keep up linguistically. You cannot keep up with the language. Okay, comments. I follow a lot of academics on Blue Sky. I see a lot of posts about chasing money and funding. Yeah, it's... And it's not just chasing money and funding. it's also just prestige, right? It's also a big thing. It's like, oh, look at us, we have 3,000 international students at our university. It's like that makes your university prestigious, and then you win awards or something. I have no idea. There's so much politics in academia. It's disgusting. Me, who canonically speaks Elvish as a first language. Very nice. Fun fact: I was more interested in reading the Dwarvish, which I found was slight variant of Futhorc. Oh, that's cool. Lowering language requirements is so fraught with problems. That tracks. During my undergraduate, I took a grad course, audit, pass, fail, and to pass, I got out of creating an ANN and only had to do a report on the current state of ANNs. A lot of it was in German. Wait, what's an ANN? I don't think I've encountered that thing before. A2? Yes. Artificial neural network. Ah, okay. The only reason I understood half of it was I understood the math and was able to parse out the technical terms and intuit their usage relative to the algorithm. Okay, sorry, I used the term of art. Yeah, no problem. Yeah, so oops, I closed this. Right, so I recently taught a student who went to Germany now, who wanted to go to a music academy to study cello. And she was like, "Yeah, all the music academies in Germany, they're just saying A2 is good enough." And I was there in disbelief. I like, okay, if you actually want to be able to understand your teachers, you probably need at least B2. I would suggest B2, otherwise your stay in Germany is going to be very, very painful. She left before she could get B1 because timing issues. But yeah, she's still taking German lessons there. It's just like for music, I could barely understand the theory in English, the only language I'm fluent in. Yeah, I know. It's a lot of that's the problem, right? It's not just technical terms. Like technical terms at some point you can learn them. It's more the technical phrasing that you find, and that is something a lot of people are not aware of as a thing. Right? If I actually unpacked a university level textbook and read out the sentence, like you have sentences that are a paragraph long, right? That's just one sentence. And then you have to be able to look at that and parse it and just say, okay, what is actually happening here? What is this thing trying to tell me? And because usually textbooks like that are talking about very abstract things that are true no matter time and space, right? So you cannot use any of these pointers like time, space, actual objects, Dijks's relevance to you, to like help you communicate. No, you have to explain the whole picture in an abstract, universal manner, and that's like being able to parse that in another language is really difficult. Paragraph like sentences are bad writing most of the time. They are, but that's what textbooks are, right? Abstractions are very tough to phrase concisely. Exactly. Right? Like if I were to teach, I don't know, like something on linguistics or music theory or probability now on stream, I could try to go really high level, and then no one will be watching my stream anymore because no one will like. It's not just the terms; like no one will be able to follow along with what I am actually like. Where does the sentence start and where does it end? Right. Of course, I'm game for that, but I'm a weirdo. Yeah, so that's possible topic. So to return to this big um not segue, big excursion Possible topics. So we have, of course, game design. And inside here, one topic that I wanted to look at is board game mechanics. In RPGs, right? So linguistics is a topic. It definitely is. Let me put that here. Linguistics. So one by one, what do I mean with this? So board game mechanics in RPG. So in board games, and really, this is an RPG focused channel, but like board game design is about 2 decades ish ahead of RPG design. Maybe 1 decade. We'll see. Right? You can't really quantify it like that, but like board games have had a level of design innovation and rigor that is not present in RPGs yet, question mark. Maybe, hopefully it'll get there at some point. But if you really look at the world of when I heard board game mechanics, I was about to ask what about related to RPGs. Yeah, exactly. Imo, I'm sure it's about 3 decades ahead. Board games have existed for a lot longer. They have, but the real like new age, the renaissance of board games came with Settlers of Catan, which was 1996. Yes, they have existed for thousands of years, quite literally. But yes, they have been more popular, and that has led to more people entering the hobby. And when more people enter the hobby, you also get more people designing in the hobby, right? Because more people knowing about it means more, like, even if it's the same fraction, if only 1% of all people who play board games eventually start designing them, like if you have 10 million people, it's probably not enough. If you have like, I don't know, 500 million people entering board games as a hobby, then that is 5 million potential designers, right? Whereas if you, in RPGs you only have 10 million people, well, that's only 100,000 designers. So it's a world of a difference, right? If we count Go, chess, yes, thousands of years. If we draw the line at Clue, that was 1930s. Was it 1930s? I don't remember. Sounds about right though. But yeah, Clue is a very, very interesting case of innovative board game design that was held back by publishers chasing, or not chasing the trend, but staying safe. I mentioned this on Blue Sky. It's like the original Clue board game never meant to have a board like that. It was only the clues. It was only the characters, the weapons, the rooms. My bad, 1949. I mean, yeah, close enough for that. And then right, and then you're just supposed to pick 3 of them and make suggestions. Like, I think it was Professor Plum with the rope in the study, right? And that's it. That's the whole thing. And then the publisher was like, yeah, but if we don't have a board and we don't have roll and move with dice, but back then it's probably not called roll and move, it was just called board gaming, right? Where you have to roll and move through the mansion, people will not understand that this is a board game. So they put that in there and made the game worse. Yeah, it is more like card-based mystery games, exactly. So the design ideas were there. And then eventually 1996 Settlers of Catan came out. Or was it 1995? One of those years, I forget. and revolutionized what board games were capable of. And since then, there's been the whole renaissance of board games. Monopoly was the first modern, and in 1935. Okay. I flipped the years. That's okay. Right. And since then there's been a lot of and a lot of new board games, a lot of innovation happening, and most importantly, an actual like repository of mechanics. Like if you go to Board Game Geek, you can search board games by mechanic, and there's a list. It's a long list, yes, but that just means there's a lot of mechanics. So things like worker placement is a mechanic, deck building is a mechanic, roll and move is a mechanic, trick taking is a mechanic. There's two types of auction mechanics. There's the British and the Dutch auction mechanics, right? All sorts. And so if you want to design a board game, you can go on there, look at what kinds of mechanics people have already invented for various things that you want the game to do. And then you can take that basic mechanic, play around with it, implement it into your game. You can take a whole bunch of mechanics, right? Implement them into your game and create a new game out of it. And every now and then, someone invents a completely new mechanic, which is really cool. But we have this repository of a toolbox that has been well cataloged and analyzed, and you can now iterate on that and combine with it and see what gaps there are for you to create new mechanics, right? I'm making a game that will have them all, 5 types of auction mechanics. If you can invent 3 more, go ahead, right? I have no idea how to do any of that. I mean, right now there's the British auction mechanic and the Dutch auction mechanic. Which yeah, which are the ones categorized on BGG. And for role-playing games, that doesn't really exist. Like if I go to RPG Geek, rpggeek.com, which also exists, which is a lot smaller, right? You have you do have mechanics, but these mechanics are very, how do I say, they're not on the same level. So let me see if I can show this somehow. No, how do I do this? I have no idea how to do that fair. I think part of it is being a smaller population playing the games. You have fewer people willing to do that detailed analysis. Yes. Okay, let me also open BGG. Board Game Geek. Mechanics. So they both have a mechanics page, right? But once we get to them, we'll see the difference, the stark difference. Ads will appear in a couple seconds. So let me switch over to here for now, and then let me see how I can show you this thing without accidentally doxing myself or revealing too much. This one. There we go. I think part of it is being a small population. Trying the games, you have fewer people. Yeah, oh yeah. I look at that. Yes.
Endure.
Okay, so ads are running.
Enduring, grow strong.
Actually, I do need to go to the bathroom real quick. I just realized. So I will be back in like a couple minutes, and then I'll see you on the other side real quick. Yeah, get a drink, get a stretch. Be right back. Okay, I'm back. It's all good. I took the opportunity to peruse the RPG Geek list. I was surprised that they separate the number of dice faces as a mechanic. I know. Let's get to that. Here. Okay, this should be visible. So on the, can I? Nope. There we go. Bit more space. Okay, so on the left half you have Board Game Geek (BGG), and on the right half you have RPGG (RPG Geek). Right. So these are like basically the website to go for, especially Board Game Geek, which catalogs essentially every single board game that comes out. And says like when did it come out, who published it, who designed it, what mechanics does it have. Sometimes you can even look at pictures and download the manual for the game on there. Like some people put it on, some people for like more popular board games, people put up supplementary supplementary things to help you out and such. I forgot to unmute. Oh no, I haven't said much. I'm just presenting these two websites. D16 though, I think I have one. It just ends up looking like a more complex D10. But like, yeah, it's and then you can have ratings, discussions, blood, tips on there, right? It's really good. If you're looking for board games, go on Board Game Geek, right? It's all good. I'm pretty sure I caught up. Very good. And you can search for mechanics. Look at this. This is a really, really, really long list of mechanics, as you can see here, right? There's acting, action drafting, action queue, action timer, alliances, area movement, auction, bidding. Do they call it different things now? Auction. Oh, auction dexterity, auction oh, they've updated this since I last checked. Oh, okay. It's been a while since I checked this. So now they named this differently. Okay. So there are multiple auction mechanics now here. Okay. Dexterity auction, I like that. Dutch priority auction, fixed placement auction, once around auction. They split up some of the edge cases. Right, okay. I see what they did there. Betting and bluffing, bids at wagers, bribery, bloody blah blah. There's a lot going on here, right? Open drafting, ordering paper and pencil, pattern building, pattern recognition, spelling, stacking, and balancing. So dexterity is no longer just its own thing. That's cool. I'll give a better selection to BGG and aesthetics to RPG Geek. Yeah. You choose. I like that one. Right, but there's a lot here. And it's pretty high level, right? None of these. Here auction Dutch, auction English. There we go. It's order like, oh my god, it's like this action event that okay, it goes from left to right first. Yeah, these are the two I was talking about, but they added more. Okay. Auction compensation as mechanics, but like these are relatively higher level, right? Because all of these describe essentially a procedure where you need other rules to fill them in. You can say, all right, I have a Dutch auction. By the way, Dutch auction, how that works is you have you count down with the price, and whoever first says I buy it gets it at that price. I like the I win mechanic. Whoever says first wins. Is there an I win? No. right? But it's essentially the opposite of the English auction. The English auction is you start with a low price and then people keep pushing up and up and up and up, and whoever is uncontested, that bid wins. Whereas the Dutch auction is opposite, which is used in a lot of like flower auctions, agricultural auctions, and such, wholesale auctions, right? Where you have essentially the price counts down bit by bit by bit, and then whoever says I buy it gets it at that price. So if you wait too long, someone else might get it before you, but if you press too soon, you'll pay too high a price. So that's the tension in the Dutch auction, right? So I can say, okay, so that's the general structure of a Dutch auction. That's how I use it. But then you have to put all the rules in yourself, right? You have to say, okay, how exactly do I time the bidding? What am I bidding with? What am I bidding for, right? How do I make sure that someone does that's almost like I win, kind of, but you have to pay a cost if you shout too early, right? And so on. And there's a lot of things going on here. Whereas on RPG Geek, all of these, like, look at this, they have dice percentile, dice d10, dice d12, dice d16, dice d2, dice d20, dice d4, dice d6, dice d8, dice fudge, dice specialized, dice various. This is like, what, a dozen mechanics as they put them in here, just based on what die you use. A die is a tool, it is not a mechanic. Right? That's like saying, do I write with pencil or do I write with pen? Or do I write with a crayon or a felt pen or a marker or something, right? That's the level of mechanical distinction that RPG Geek has. Now, nothing against RPG Geek itself, but that's just because, RPGs as a design space is not mature yet. This is how you have to do it right now, right? So, but is this helpful? I don't think so. Yeah, exactly. Dice rolling, and heck, you could have different dice rolling. You could have. Do they even have that? They do not have that. So, what I would have put as mechanics is things like roll under, roll over, roll under blackjack, roll and keep, which is here. Like, that's the only one that's here. But the other ones aren't. Right? And those are mechanics. Roll over, roll under blackjack, roll and keep. Those are mechanics. And where you still have to have rules, they have exploding dice. Yeah, some of these are good. Exploding dice. I guess diceless, if you want to have that. Does not use a randomizer. Yeah. They have cards, I think. Cards, right? Yeah, tarot deck. Again, that's very specialized. Attribute stat based. Okay. Do they have something like building points? They don't have life path generation. Point based. Yeah. Okay. Point based. Okay. So they have some things which are mechanics. Point based, life path character, class based, attribute based. Right. Fair. Those are mechanics. Dice pool, I guess you can call that a mechanic as well. Okay. But a lot of these aren't. And they're missing some things that I would definitely count as mechanics. Right? I dislike roll under. Yeah, it goes against the basic intuition of roll high equals more better. Right? Roll over, roll under are important. Yeah. Maybe they should consider mechanisms, tools, and mechanics. Exactly. Right? A lot of these are tools. Also, I like that the D16 is a candy. That's wild. But yeah, it's a mix. It's a wild mix of specific tools and actual mechanics. I guess you could have specialized dice as a mechanic, because that okay, right? You need to, like, the Genesis system, for example, or the Legend of the Five Rings. Sure, okay, to notify, because that is different, that is strange, that is special. But all of these, huh? Right. So a lot of these are very much and it's missing a bunch, and because this repository is just not there, right? It doesn't exist on here. What happens a lot of times is people design RPGs and they keep reinventing the wheel again and again, and that is a big problem. That is a large part of what causes, in my opinion, a large part of what causes RPG design to just flounder, right? Because we don't have this repository of, yo, check out this game. If you want to design something that does this, check out this game, or so. Or if you want to implement this mechanic, well, these 3 games have implemented the same mechanic. You can look at it, but we don't even know that we're talking about this mechanic, right? We're not even there yet. And that's a big problem. Even with a bell curve, with the average person doesn't really do well with. Yeah. Imo, from my time trying to make 3d6 based GURPS, like, most people associate higher with better, and accounting for probabilities is easier with rollover. Yeah, definitely. So they often don't know about the mechanics, and I think they've done something. Yes, like the amount of times people have reinvented the wheel, and then I go, hold on, this exists in this old game, right? Which is sad, because when I design board games, I also design board games. Like, I look at, oh, okay, I want to create a worker placement game, or I want to create a deck building game, or I want to create a game that combines the two. What could there be? And then I look at things like deck building games, and I see, right, so deck building started with Dominion, but then people have taken deck building much further and are now, yes, you do deck building, but the deck building is an engine to do other things in the game. Things like the game Clank, for example, does that. It's a dungeon exploration, treasure looting game, where the engine with which you loot the dungeon and hopefully don't wake the dragon is your deck, which you build over the course of the game, right? So it iterates and innovates upon an established mechanic, and we don't have that in RPGs, and that's really, really sad. That's really sad. We don't have, like, I'm just looking through the list. You don't have something like there's clocks in here. Clocks aren't in here. There's so much missing. Clocks aren't in here. PBTA style moves aren't in here, which are a specific kind of mechanic, right? Hex based, okay, I guess grid based, but this is very I can think of a lot of things that you can put in here which just aren't, and that it's sad that we're not there yet. Clocks, countdowns, I look for. Yeah, exactly. It's so heartbreaking to see them try to defend their new mechanic as new when it really isn't. It is. I've seen some friends on Discord play the video game version. Clank. Yeah, okay. Clank is an amazing game. And it is one of those games that shows you that you can take a mechanic that has been established and that is years old and still do something fresh with it. Video Sim makes a fun way to do a chase. Huh. I would have to think about that one. Because, like, Clank also uses back building. right? It's a deck building, back building game, which is a very interesting combination. So one thing I want to do is look at the mechanics as they exist in board games and see if we can apply them to role-playing games. Because this is frankly sad. It is depressing to see that this is the state of mechanical categorization in board games right now. It's sad. You know, you'd think, oh my goodness, with so many people designing, that we'd have a lot of things going on already. So that's, yeah. It is sad. So I want to, before I go and try to innovate and blah. Well, maybe I could also, that would be a big pro. Oh, no, I don't have time for another big project. Ugh. But it's the autism. It's the autism brain just going, no, I need to bring order. Look at a whole bunch of role playing games and see what kind of mechanics they might have. There is a really, really, really old book. It's probably 20 years old by now, and I don't think it's ever been finished. But it was made by an engineer who was also a big RPG fan, and it was called Patterns of RPG Mechanic Design or something along those lines. Patterns of Design in RPGs, something like that. And what he did was he looked at a whole bunch of RPGs, like really a whole bunch of them, and he basically drew diagrams of how all the moving parts of that RPG, all the mechanics of the RPG function together and what they are. Right? It's like, okay, you make a choice here, and then it branches off to a die roll, and then the die roll branches off to like a lookup table, and that gives you results. Blah. It was like, you look at it and you could see that an engineer made this. Let me see. I might have it. I might have gotten a hold of that during my research. I think I have it. Still an old PDF copy. RPG design patterns. My copy is from September 13th, 2009. That's when I last got the PDF. Let me see if I can show this on screen. This thing. Let me rearrange this to put down here. No, come on, mouse. Okay. Okay. Let me switch this over. This thing. Okay. Creative Commons, so I can share this, no problem. Copyright 2006. Yeah, but this one's from 2009. Okay. So yeah, it's almost 20 years old by now. That's after I did my stuff. If I shared any of my design documents, it'd say an overcaffeinated engineer with ADHD started this. But yeah, it first came out 2006, so it floated around the Forge, and a lot of people were. I was really excited about this. I think some people were kind of like, "What? Well, this is useless." I loved this. I absolutely love this. So you can see there's look at this. This is a long document. 200 something pages, almost 300 pages. If it was published 2006 originally, I might have a copy. Yeah, it was never finished, I think, right? Because this is a lot of work. So it was updated every now and then, but then I don't think it was ever finished. Yeah, exactly. Okay, if I had it, I lost it. Oh no, you might be able to. I could also see if I can somehow get this one to you. It might still float around somewhere on some RPG forum. It is a free PDF? Yeah, the guy, or at least the work in progress version. Like I said, I don't know if it was ever finished. He just kind of dropped off after a while, or I haven't really kept up. But this is free. It's Creative Commons, right? License. Oh, hold on. I have HDR. Let me turn off HDR. That's probably gonna make it a bit easier to read. Hold on. Oh, now it's really bright in my face, but okay. That might be easier to read. It is CCSA, so I can share directly. Yeah, okay. So I can see how I can get that to you. Just not for commercial purposes. Yeah, of course, obviously. No money off this. So as you can see, first step in designing RPG. So this is Ford RPG design, right? And it's a lot of like, this is almost mechanics that exist, right? Hit points are a mechanic, right? So this is, but we have to remember this was 20 years ago. The types of games that existed back then were very different. But this is like a couple of things that existed in games back then. Gauge patterns and such, and then story patterns, role-playing patterns, all of these structural patterns, and then game summaries. So it goes through a lot of a lot of these diagrams. As a gauge is more beneficial, the higher its value. A gauge that is more beneficial, the lower its value, the conflicted gauge, right? A lot of these things, gift or other non-gauge characteristic, a flaw characteristic that is both a gift and a flaw, a set of gauges, a set of gifts, right? A lot of these is an element of that, right? Affects something. Dash arrow is an inverse relationship. If this goes up, that goes down. And so, right, it's like, whoa. And so on. It's a lot of these. Fudge was around. It was, definitely. Is it on the list? It is. Nice. So you can see Ars Magica, Call of Cthulhu, 6th edition. 7th is out now. Capes, Code of Unaris, Dogs in the Vineyard, Dungeons & Dragons version 3.5. Oh my goodness. Back then, the good old days. Elves, Fudge, GURPS, 3rd edition, Harp, Hero Quest, Hero System, Inspector. Oh, he has inspectors in here. Nice. My Life with Master, cool. Nobilis, Paranoia, The Pool. Oh, The Pool. That made a splash. But no, The Pool was an interesting. That game actually innovated. Puppet Land, Riddle of Steel, very nice. Rifts, Rollmaster, Shadowrun 2nd edition. Oh, that is old. Shadowrun 2nd edition. Wow. Shadowrun is in its 6th edition now. Sorcerer, Torque Universalis, Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay, World of Darkness. Okay. And then he goes into here, example structure. Look at that. Right? Contest trees. Like, so this is you start a contest. Pertinent antagonist gauges, pertinent protagonist gauges, right? And then you go through this and how it affects things. Character makeup patterns. Class 1, Class 2. Yeah, this is how classes might be made. Example structure. This is a class tree structure. If you've ever played something like Final Fantasy, older Final Fantasies or other JRPGs, you know this. I bought 4E Shadowrun long ago. Yeah, that was. I started with 4E as well. That was so long ago. Not just an engineer, a software engineer with mathematics background and interest in systems architecture. Yeah, probably. Fate was just emerging. Yep. Gifts, what these are, hit points, right? And then it actually, this is really good stuff, right? Intent, also known as related patterns, motivation. Why would you use this? Applicability. How would you use this? Consequences. What happens when you use this? And such. This is really good stuff. Right? And this just kind of fell off and was forgotten. Like, I don't know how many designers nowadays know that this thing exists. Right? This is by now ancient RPG design history. I just realized that the pages are wrong, but I'll do it this way because then I have the double spread. Actually, never mind. This is how it's supposed to be. Now the numbers are correct. Anyway, right? This is really good stuff. Like implementation concerns. He has like 2 pages, 2.5 pages of implementation concerns. Right? It's like Ollie Hank and the known uses. Like, this is really, really good stuff. This is what I want. Right? A repository of different mechanics that you can find. Not just a repository, but also an analysis of different mechanics that you can find in RPGs. And when you want to design a game, you have this as a resource. But this does not exist anymore in modern RPG design. Modern RPG design is so much vibes based, and it's sad because vibes can only take you so far, right? The diagramming method is 100% software engineering. Okay, I kid you not, I make similar diagrams for my job. That is good to see. The pattern written intent, also known as motivation, comes from a software world. Okay, so this was definitely a software engineer who made this. It's not an easy format to stick to, but as a reader, it's immensely valuable. It is. It is so valuable. And a lot of big names in RPG design, like not the ones who stuck around, who were there when the Forge was a thing, because I saw this on the Forge, I believe. It's where I first heard of it. And some other RPG design forums had this as well. But designers nowadays who weren't around during the Forge days, how many of them know that something like this exists? And that this is possible for RPGs. Right? We don't have to reinvent the wheel every time. It's already been done. But because we try to reinvent the wheel every time, RPG design just kind of flounders and circles around itself and never grows like it could. And that's sad. Point spent attributes, right? Random attributes, skill tree. Look at this. Arithmetic, algebra, linear algebra, Riemann spaces, Euclidean geometry. Look at this example. This is okay, yeah. Few. It does, yeah, exactly. Template, trait. You know, a difference between a template and a class. Right? It's like this is gold. Wound trait, fundamental gauge patterns, and then yeah, look at that. This is where we start to get into things. And then once we look at the games, I want to go to the games. Where do they start? Structural patterns, modularity. Are we there yet? Priority grid. Game summaries. There we go. Ars Magica, for example. Some basic information. Ars Magica, RPG design patterns identified, which ones they are and how they're named in the game. Character makeup, how this looks, right? And then gift swap skills, all these patterns of how a character is made up. Conflict system, how the conflict system works. Turn order, if there's turn order in the game, right? And this is the dial that turns, right? Reward system. Degree of danger, good roleplay. So this is probably like soft. It's not mechanics. It's based on player consensus and such, experience points, skills, right? Things like that. And this is really good stuff. This is really, really good stuff. Way back in GURPS 4E, SJ Games postulated spending character points to impact story. Fate was hailed for that being a new mechanic. Yeah. Fate added a lot of neat stuff. Spending points to affect story wasn't brand new. It definitely wasn't. Meta currency like that, fate points, hero points, gimmicks, bennies, whatever you want to call them, existed before. Definitely. So yeah, it is really good. So yeah, I know. So this is like, and something like this is practically lost lore in RPG design. And I feel like that is a big part of why RPG design is not really getting anywhere. And there's also this strange aversion to theory. For some reason, among like this is something that comes up again and again in RPG design circles. It's like someone talks about, oh, we should establish theory, right? We should have some terms to work with, some models to work with, and then a lot of people are like, oh, but no, theory is bad. It's like, why? Why? Board games have theory. Board games have decades of theory, right? And RPGs have close to nothing. And I mean, I'm not talking about players who don't design games to jump in and say, oh my god, you can't tell me how to play the game. I'm not playing it wrong and such. I'm not talking about them, right? They're not the target audience. They're not part of the discussion because they don't have the expertise. And it's okay not to have the expertise, right? It's just be aware that you don't have it and we're not talking to you right now. But even among designers, there's a strange aversion to theory, which is baffling. It's absolutely baffling. Yeah. It looks like there's another version was published in 2013. The 2005 copy uploaded in 2013. Oh, there is theory. Game theory, the mathematical study informs a lot of this. Learning that isn't bad. It'll help. Yeah. Game theory, like in the Nash game theory. Oh god, I was like asking video game players who programmers and UX experts. Yeah. Definitely. So I'm not talking about that. But among a lot of designers, there's an aversion to theory for some reason. I keep seeing this. A lot of designers are like, "Oh my god, are we talking about theory again? Why are we talking about theory again? Let's just design games." Like, huh? What? Hello? What are you talking about? Right. And I'm not even talking about tool sets that you need as a designer potentially. Things like probability. Things like, yeah, maybe game theory that you need. Things like story structures, right? Narrative beats and all of that which you might want in your game. I'm not even talking about those things. I'm talking about like ludology in that manner, right? In that direction. Right? What even are games? Because games include a lot of psychology. And things like emergent gameplay, systems, right? System interactions like that. and then of course theory just based on the RPGs themselves, and to some degree things like board games, right? Mechanisms, structures, procedures, things like that. Like, why would you not use that? Why would you not want to use all of that? Like Nash's game theory. Okay, it underlies motivations and mechanical terms among others. One not be 100% mathematical formal, but being familiar to agree will help. Yeah. Definitely. Like you just mentioned, story beats, general writing. Exactly. And also, technical writing. Please, technical writing. There are a lot of RPG designers out there who are like, just write how you want. Just write whatever your style is. And like, no. RPG manuals are a technical manual. They're supposed to teach you something very complex. Please look at some technical writing. Look at some manual writing. Look at how board game manuals are written. Look at how a good manual for, I don't know, a kitchen appliance is written. Right? Look at those things. Because a lot of RPGs suffer not because they're designed badly, but because they're explained badly. Technical writing skills. It's like Burning Wheel. Burning Wheel is a good game. There are a lot of incredible ideas in there, and it's structured really well. Like all the parts fit together really well. Burning Wheel suffers immensely from Luke Crane's writing style. Holy heck, can that guy not write a game manual? Oh my goodness, like if you're reading the Burning Wheel rulebook, it reads like some dude trying to initiate you into an arcane order through nudging and winking. That's it. And you're supposed to learn a fairly complex, intricate game through nudges and winks. That's essentially it. Like, I can imagine if Burning Wheel were written in a more technical style, that actually explains the rules clearly, it'll be so much more popular, so much better, and so many more people could access it, right? One of the first things I looked at when trying to make my own was the writing guidelines for GURPS, which were public for a time. I think, yeah, GURPS, from what I remember, was pretty good on that scale. But some guys, heck, even Apocalypse World, as brilliant a designer the Bakers are, their writing style for rule books. Okay, I'm gonna hold on. I'm gonna close this now because this is messing with. It's too bright. I need to turn HDR back on. My screen is too bright for non-HDR. It is messing badly with me. Is burning my retinas. Okay. World of Darkness will suffer from both overuse of fan fiction and graphic design focus on art and not the text overlaying the art, often making it tough to read. Yeah. GURPS is very well written from technical writing perspective. Yeah, that's what I remember. Like, I read GURPS. GURPS is also pretty intricate. And I read it fine. I read it like once and I basically understood what was going on. Apocalypse World? I started reading that book like a dozen times, and at some point I was just like, I'm lost. I don't know what you want from me. Right? I have no idea what's going on. There's so many references, and are those in jokes? I don't even know if they're in jokes. And so many, like, such purple prose and flowery language. And so I'm just, no, I'm lost. I don't know how you want me to play the game. I'm sorry. Right? Same with Burning Wheel. I read through that book, I don't know, 3 or 4 times, and only slowly do I understand what it wants from me? I've never tried Apocalypse World. It has a lot of amazing ideas, especially the second edition. And reading, and I mean, I learned more about how Apocalypse World works by reading blog posts by Vincent Baker than by reading the game manual itself. Because when Vincent Baker is describing his game, talking about his game, then you can use your normal speaking language, right? And that's fine. But if you're trying to explain rules, don't do that. Overly flowery language is a big turnoff when I'm reading a technical document. Yeah, exactly. It hurts. It hurts. And like one of the things that stood out to me from Burning Wheel. Burning Wheel uses a dice pool system where you roll a bunch of d6 depending on the skill you're using and such. And you need to get a certain number of passes, right? So everything that rolls a 4, 5, and 6 is a pass. Everything that rolls a 1, 2, and 3 is a fail. And you need to get a certain amount of passes, right? It's like, okay, this is fairly easy to understand. But even that explanation is so filled with overly flowery language and in-jokes and references and like, I am not a technical manual, I am an in-universe document. Almost like that, right? It's like any 1, 2, or 3. Let me see if I can find that passage in particular, actually. And I'm just going to read that passage. Because that is symptomatic of... Where are my RPG books? That passage is symptomatic of how the rest of the book reads. Burning Wheel, Gold Edition. There we go. Dice. The spokes. Where is it? Where is the part? Huh? Did it get removed? Ah, there we go. Sheets of favorite dice. Okay, D6. Burning Wheel uses common 6-sided dice for all rolls. From here on out, these are referred to as D6. Okay. Which is gamer talks for 6 sides. Fine. Groups of them are referred to 3d6, 4d6, 5d6, or 3d, 4d, 5d for short. How's that for confusing gamer parlance? Like, why do you need that sentence in there? Oh, I just realized I'm showing the book. I didn't want to show the book. Difficulty number. Dice in Burning Wheel are rolled in handfuls or pools of usually 3 to 6 dice. In each roll, every die is counted as its own result, either a yes or a no. The more yeses, the better. Any die that comes up as a no result is a traitor to your cause and doesn't count towards success. Right? The number needed for the dice to achieve the yes result is called the difficulty number. For the purposes of explaining the rules, a yes result is a 4, 5, or 6 on a die. A no result is a 1, 2, or 3. Traitors! There are only 2 instances where this changes, and these will be discussed later. And now there's a diagram showing a 4, 5, and 6. Yes, successes. And then a 1, 2, and 3. No, failed dice. Traitors! Right? It's like, hello? And so there's all of these extra things in there. That sounds like someone trying to make in-jokes. Exactly. Trying to make in-jokes, trying to make references, trying to make like, I will show you the way of gamers. Ha ha ha, nudge nudge, wink wink. Right? And this just continues throughout the entire book. The entire rule book works like this. And it's like, first off, it bloats the text, adds page count, and second, it distracts from like what is important and what is not important. Right? And it's like, why? Why do you do this? If you're explaining lore, okay, fair. You can be flowery. You can use in-universe documents. You can whatever. Sure. If you're explaining the setting or lore or background, well, nice. But if you're actually explaining the rules, please be technical. This is not the space to do something like this. Very distracting, exactly. Right? And it's like, I have to, when I'm reading, I constantly have to say, okay, this bit of information is not important. I have to constantly filter. So yeah, 50% chance per die you could replace those coin tosses. In general, yes, not in Burning Wheel because the chance does change, and that is part of character advancement, which is a cool bit of design. At some point, you can make your skills better. Where a 3, 4, 5, 6 counts as a success, or a 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 counts as a success if you become supernatural in a skill. Right? Or just like, okay, then you use dice, fair. But yeah, at least World of Darkness clearly separated those aspects in the books. They've interleaved the lore artsy text with the rules, but the artwork styling made it clear which was which. Okay, at least that. But yeah, this is symptomatic. There's a lot of this stuff going through the book, which is not great. Let me show this one page. I want to show this one page as another thing. This page right here. This page shows you that game designers do not understand probability. So what is this table? This table is essentially you have obstacle numbers, which are the difficulty number, which is also like, he's already contradicting himself. He said, in the game, the number of yeses you need is called the difficulty number. And now he's calling it obstacle. Which one is it? All right. So that's already contradiction. He calls it here obstacle 1, 2, 3. So this is how many passes you need on your dice, right? If you roll an exponent, why introduce these terms? I don't know. But exponent is the number of dice you roll. Why is it called exponent? I don't know. He attempts to explain it, but I don't know why. Blech. Right. So if you roll 4 dice and you need 2 passes, then he says this is easy. Okay, fair. And so on. And so he shades this as dark for easy. The bottom left corner, the top right corner is shaded light for too hard, and in the middle there's a hard part. I ran the probabilities on this entire table. Let me see if I can find it. I might still have it somewhere. I might have the probability. Maybe. Or did I get rid of it? I probably got rid of it. But essentially, yeah, the probabilities are way off. So this field right here, an obstacle 7 with 10 dice, is something like a 13% chance of success. 13.5% chance of success. He marks that as easy. This is not based on any real numbers. These shadings are not based on any real numbers. These are just vibes. It's just vibes. If you actually run the numbers, this is way off. Right? Also, I disagree with the terminology. If you're using easy and hard, there are common terms in between. Oh, you mean like among players and such? Like what they interpret as easy and what they interpret as hard? Yeah, so it's is definitely just vibes based. So it's very much designers not understanding probability, which is also a big issue. Even basic probability, and this is not difficult to calculate. You just look up the formula online, plug it into Excel or something like that, and it does all the work for you. Right? If you don't want to learn probability, which, again, it's not that difficult. Yes, I'd go easy, average, hard. Right? Yeah. If limited to 3 terms, yes, very fair. Easy, hard, too hard. That's like the Starbucks. You have medium, large, and extra large, right? But yeah, but easy for me is greater than 60% probability of success. Yeah, exactly. Like a challenging dice roll is probably 50-50. Right? I would call that challenging. If you have a 50-50 chance, thereabouts, I'd call that challenging. Because it's inconsistent. If you have about a 2/3 chance of success, I'd call that, yeah, okay, you can do that. Basically a Starbucks. Yeah. So there's a lot of this stuff where I feel like, yeah. And again, I'm not talking about beginner designers who are designing Heartbreakers or who are just homebrewing about or mucking about and just enjoying themselves. I'm not talking about those. That's perfectly legit, perfectly valid, you know. Designing Heartbreakers is just like writing fan fiction. It's completely valid. Go and do it if it's fun for you. I'm talking, these are published books. You buy them for money. Right? And then they have things like that in them. Like imagine if a board game manual was written like that. That thing would be pulled from shelves. So I do feel like right now the RPG scene is still very auteur driven. My captions don't know that word. Auteur? Is that how you pronounce it? Auteur? Something like that. The Tommy Wiseaus. We have a lot of Tommy Wiseaus. That's probably a bit harsh, but you know. This makes me feel much better about what I focus on for my defunct game. Started with defining consistent terms, worked up probabilities on various things. There are breakpoints with 3d6 based games. Yeah, I think that's a pronunciation. Okay, yes. So we all know what I'm talking about. Auteurs. It's still a very auteur-driven medium. Can I call it a medium? Community is not a community, no, but like a very auteur-driven scene, right? Which sure, auteurs can innovate, possible, but sometimes they create the room, right? So you know, and because it's so auteur driven, I think a lot of people unwilling to let go of that and move into a more structural approach. I'm a linguist. I got trained in structural approaches. Also, ads are starting. Isn't about half the TTRPG scene auteurs? Isn't that why WotC still dominates? Yes. But yeah, ads are playing. We'll put a pin in that for a couple of minutes. That and shrewd business deals. Yeah. There's been some BS happening. I'm not gonna go into that. I don't understand enough of it to accurately comment what's going on. But yeah. That's what's happening. Ads are rolling, yes. So I'm gonna stretch, I'm gonna drink. I have a big 2-liter bottle, 2.2 liter bottle of water, and I intend to finish it today. I need to finish one of these every day. I don't usually, which is probably not helpful. I need to finish one of these each day. And I'm far behind. Okay. Can turn this off, turn this back on. Okay. Welcome back. Oh, is it already over? Ads. It's still telling me there's 40 seconds of ads, so I will wait until that is definitely done, just in case people are still trapped. But this is giving me. I'm doing the unhinged TTRPG opinions thread on Blue Sky, and I still have a bunch that I need to fill. There's so much now. There's so much. Uh, uh, okay, ads are now over. Yeah, board game mechanics and RPGs tend to spark a whole rabbit hole related to chat. Yeah. I've missed this unhinged thread. Oh, really? It's I can let me see if I can grab the link. Copy link. It's this one right here. It's a new one. I've done one in the past that had like 84 likes, so I had to do 84 opinions, which I actually managed. But now I'm running out of opinions for the next one. Um so let me just the two big points I have talked about today. Uh, uh okay. All right, I added those two opinions that I've been talking about. Okay. Right. Topics. So, board game mechanics and RPGs. The design patterns. In RPGs. I really want to see if there's a copy floating about that's newer than the one I have now, because 2009 is ages ago. But I think once you get the system down, you can start analyzing games again. These are two big things that I definitely want to look at. There's another thing in game design I want to look at, which is the something that interests me is essentially looking at prep from a designer's perspective, right? Perspective. So what do I mean by that? Right now, prep is always looked at from a GM's perspective, right? A lot of tips out there are all about, oh, how can the GM reduce prep, or how do you manage prep? What do you actually have to prep? How can you do things? Blah blah blah. All of that good stuff. And a lot of the tips. There's something wrong with my Krita displaying weirdly. Okay, a lot of the tips given are by writers. The designer has an obligation to aid in prep, so as minimizing it for the GM. Yes, definitely. Right, so there's a lot of tips from writers online, right, that say, oh yeah, when you're writing a story, you need to watch out for these narrative beats, and there's a 3-act structure, and blah 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 blah, all of these things. And then they apply that to RPGs, which yes is useful, but it's too high level, especially since the difference is when you're writing a story of any kind, that is a static medium, and when you're playing a game, that is a dynamic medium, and you can use experience and knowledge of how stories function to help you, but you can't actually include that in your prep without turning your game into a static medium, aka railroading, right? GURPS fails there when considering only the core rulebooks. Yeah, a lot of books don't do this. And then other tips are things like the on the like, so that's the writer tips are on the high level of like overarching storytelling, like how does storytelling even work? And then a lot of tips for other people who have run games are on the very micro level, right? Things like ask the players questions, or know when to roll, or things like that, right? So you have these two extremes that appear in a lot of tips on blogs and videos, podcasts, whatever, right? And I watch quite a few of them because I'm still looking for, for that middle ground. Not quite that bad, but it's rough. GURPS basically a rule dump and you're on your own. Yeah, a lot of games are like that. It's sad. It's just basically, here are some rules, you're on your own. And I'm still looking for that middle ground of like, how do you actually handle prep for this system, right? Know when to roll. How does one know this? Yeah, but that's again, that's a lot of GMs just saying like, oh, do this, blah, or when this situation arrives, or think about these things. Here's 3 questions every GM must ask before asking for a roll, or something like that, right? There's a lot of clickbaity titles or clickbaity videos and such out there like that. Some of them have good tips. Every now and then there's a gem, but a lot of them are like, okay. And very few actually go into the prep. There's also a lot of how to run things, like how do you run a hex crawl, right? It's like, okay, so it gives you the procedure of running a hex crawl, but then how do you prep? Right? Again, there's none of that. So those are the three parts that are covered. Actually running the game at the table, which is useful, yes, but that's not what I'm looking for. Story structures, which is super high level tips, and then very low level tips. Low level not as in not valuable or worthless, but low level as in getting into the weeds. Low level, right? Of like when to call for rolls, how to deal with problem players. I guess maybe that's part of running the game, right? Things like that. But prep from a designer's perspective, prep from an adventure writer's perspective, or prep from like random generators and things like that, right? Like how do you give a GM material to run a session? And once again, I'm looking at board games. When you think about a board game is a one-shot. You have a couple of rules. Sure, one person will read the rules and explain them to the others, but usually you can read them in like 15, 20 minutes, right? So before your friends get here for the evening, you sit down with the rules and read them over, right? 15, 20 minutes or so. And then you know how to play. And then you set up the board game. And then you play. And it gives you 3-4 hours of entertainment just from the game itself, right? RPGs don't have any of that. But I don't think it's impossible to create something like that, right? If I had to describe my prep for the games I ran when trying to make my system, I'd summarize it as watch Metalocalypse, read the most recent The Onion issue, and know that what the options are. Have a mental checklist and expect people to deviate from the plan. Know how you'll adapt to it. A lot of that is that there are definitely deviate from the plan. That goes into a big issue of, because again, and this is another part where not having theory really trips everything up, trips all discussions up. We don't have terms, right? When I say something and you say something, are we talking about the same thing? When you mention something, is the image in your head you have the same as the one I have? We don't have the fixed terms, the technical terms to talk about it. So we're stuck. Not just like we cannot communicate our ideas because we first have to define what we're actually thinking over and over and over again. And that's another issue, right? The plan is being used very loosely. Yeah, I have an idea of where I want the characters to go and do, then the characters are maladaptive. Right. And I feel like that's ineffective. Right. So it's, since they're maladaptive, they will do very antisocial things, so it will not likely succeed. Okay. Also fair. But that goes into a whole, like, how do I actually write something for a dynamic medium like RPGs? And because a lot of this is the same that happened with television, with film, right? When film first arrived, a lot of the knowledge and techniques and know-how and such came from theater. And that's why old films, when film was first became a thing, have such a different feel than modern films, right? Because old films still worked off what people knew about theater. But film and theater, while related, are two very different mediums. And over time, people in film have developed their own techniques, their own language, their own theories on what you can do in film that you cannot recreate in theater. And so modern films are their own thing, are very much their own thing. Yeah, now they weren't trying to be theater necessarily. I don't think that was the end goal. It was just that nobody knew what the heck film was. It was just a way of capturing theater, because that's the only thing people knew back then. They only knew theater, they didn't know film, right? And as time went on, they learned, hold on, you can do special things with film that you cannot do with theater, right? And so it developed its own identity. And a lot of RPG right now, I think RPG is still trying to find its own identity, but a lot of, they were using what they knew, exactly. RPGs right now, I think a lot of it is still influenced from things like storytelling, novels, and TV series. A lot of examples still come from Imagine, a campaign being a whole TV series and each adventure being one episode. It's like, okay, but we're not there yet to have our own language to talk about it, right? And so a lot of how to run RPGs, how to think about RPGs, how to prep and such RPGs, a lot of the ideas still come from novels and TV series, right? Because that's what we know. But RPG is its own thing, mainly because RPG is a dynamic medium. And we should look to other dynamic mediums as a better jumping off point. Video games and board games, right? But again, board games, I don't know. Both video games and board games are also fairly new, especially compared to novels and TV series, right? So they are also still in their experimental phase of like, what actually is happening? And so if RPGs want to adapt from that, it's adapting a half-built thing that you then have to make into your own. So it's a big mess. I think TTRPGs are a broad category. That's also a thing. I think some of the language has developed, but you're right, but a lot is missing. Have I missed much elf nonsense? Not really. We're just ranting. A lot of ranting happening. We have campaign, session, module, but they're largely inadequate for some of the different ways things are actually done. Yeah. And also, like, my personal opinion is that RPGs and board games are currently on a spectrum, simply because RPGs haven't grown into their own yet. You could think, like, could you say film and theater are on a spectrum? Possibly. You could say that, right? We could include elves in our ranting. We definitely could. So I think board games and RPGs are on a spectrum. There's no clear dividing line. Especially as board games and RPGs, well, not so much RPGs, but board games are definitely innovating toward RPGs, right? With a lot of these adventure board games, Gloomhaven being a big example. And now newer ones, Kingdom Death Monster is another big one that I've seen people play, right? Things like that. Board games are definitely moving toward RPGs. RPGs are not moving toward board games. So that's this first big point that I want to say. It's like, I believe it's a spectrum. I don't know if there's a dividing line. I don't know if we can find one. Maybe we can, but there's just isn't enough happening in this edge area, right? In this boundary area right now for us to see what is going on. There are not enough games happening in there. So which elf is the playing for Gloomhaven? Is it Elfo again? Always Elfo. Damn you, Elfo. So a lot of things. It's like my not theory, my opinion right now. Is it a theory? It's not a theory. It's a hypothesis. But like my view of it right now, Fiasco, the RPG, right? That a lot of people say, is it an RPG or is it a story game? I say it's a board game. I say that Fiasco is a board game. I do think that the way it is constructed, it has a lot more, shares a lot more traits with board games than with RPGs. Fiasco, like when something goes really wrong. Yeah, Fiasco. I misheard. Yeah. So Fiasco is essentially, so how it works is you all take on roles of a dysfunctional group of people who are established in like dysfunctional relationships. And as the name of the game implies, you play through a bunch of scenes and then things go really, really wrong for them, right? That's kind of the thing. And there are no rules for playing out the scenes itself, but there is an overarching structure of turn taking, right? So how Fiasco works is they have a whole bunch of rules for you establish the setting, you establish the characters, you establish the relationships, right? And then you have some form of inciting incident, maybe, I don't quite remember. And that sets off. And then you play scenes. There's always 2 people per scene. And Fiasco suggests you have like 4 people or so in total. So 2 people get together in a scene, and this is all structured in the rules, right? So one player starts, they pick someone else to be in the scene, and then you start off with saying, what is the goal of the scene? What does each character want to accomplish? Sorry, I must have drank wrong. I want to be one of the troublemakers. Yeah, this is basically how all the games I ran went. Oh, I have hiccup. Holy heck. Okay. I hope it's gone. Right, and then you play out the scene, and then the other players at the table judge whether the person whose turn it is managed to achieve their goal. Right, so you set out with a scene. So one player takes their turn, player A takes their turn, says, I would like to accomplish this. Like, for instance, I would like to convince this player to join me in this criminal enterprise. And then you play out the scene based on the characters you have established, based on the relationships you have established. And then the other players, when the scene winds down, the other players at the table say, did you succeed in your goal, yes or no? And then they give you dice for it, like good dice or bad dice, depending on if they think you succeeded or not. And then the next player has their scene, has their turn, and says, I want to accomplish this with this other character. I want to have this player tell me about what player A is planning, right? And then you play out the scene, and then again, the other players decide at the end whether this person succeeded in their goal or not. And you go through that, and at some point, after a certain amount of scenes, the game then says, okay, midpoint, now something explodes, figuratively, right? Something goes horribly wrong. Suddenly the feds are on your trail or whatever. And now that puts a new spin on the scenes, and you play another round of scenes. And then at the end, you look at what dice you have collected, and that is your ending. They caused a Millennium Falcon clone to explode, basically a 5-kiloton nuke. Oof, that was the second unplanned explosion of the session. Oof. It's a very cool premise for a game, like the mechanics you're describing. Yeah, it is a cool premise, and you definitely need people who are comfortable with this kind of freeform roleplay, very intense and personal freeform roleplay. But if you get the right group of people, it can be a lot of fun. However, a lot of people say, yeah, no, Fiasco is not a role-playing game. It's a story game because, you establish everything up front. You state clearly what you want characters to achieve, and then you play these scenes out and such. You're building a story. I say it's a board game because it has a very clear turn structure and it has a very clear idea of what each player needs to do during the game and during each turn even, right? During a turn, you have these kinds of actions available to you, and then you perform these actions and see if your turn succeeds or not, if you get what you want. What was that? I say we randomly blame an elf. Oh no. Blame the dwarves. The elves are innocent. Elves are always high. Or something. There's the high elves. So what's your definition of a board game? Would charades be a board game? All right, so board game is a very, very, very broad term that no longer encompasses needing a board. Party games also fall under the category of board game. I guess you could call it a social game. But again, we're working with archaic terms here, right? Charades, right, some people would call that a board game. Some people might say it falls under the very vague penumbra of board game, but it is a party game, right? So that's what I'm saying. So Fiasco, to me, is a board game because it has this very, very tight turn structure. Like you are literally taking turns and trying to gain points, gain quote unquote victory points, so to speak, in your turn, right? Which is very, very different from how you would say a role-playing game functions. Yeah, then by that definition, it is absolutely a board game. Yeah, right. And like, ironically, Fiasco, the freeform story game, is less freeform than a lot of role-playing games that have like small amount of mechanics, like Lasers and Feelings, for example. Lasers and Feelings is a role-playing game that has minimal mechanics that is more freeform than Fiasco. And right. So how are you defining role-playing games? Okay, I don't know. I have to be honest, I don't really know if I have a good definition, right? Like a dictionary form definition of role-playing game now. I would say a role-playing game, and this is why I view board games and role-playing games as ends on a spectrum. Lasers and Feelings meant to have very few mechanics. It's a one-page game where most of the text is superfluous. Yes, I know. Exactly. So the reason I asked your definition is I think from your description, Fiasco counts as both. Yeah, right? That's why I think it's a spectrum. I formulate it as Fiasco as a board game to be a little bit provocative, I have to admit, right? It's a bit of this Socratic method of provoking people to think about things, right? It's like I say, Fiasco, it's a board game. And then my hope is that people then take a step back and analyze this whole style of game in a slightly different light, right? Maybe it won't work, I don't know. But like, that's the hope. So it would, when placed in the spectrum, it would definitely solidly in the middle. Yeah, is it solidly in the middle? Is the question. It is somewhere in the middle. Probably. But again, I don't know how far in each direction the spectrum actually goes and how much space there is in the middle, right? But I do see them as ends on a spectrum, which is why I feel that they ultimately share a design space, and which is also why I believe that design in this space can be pushed much further than it currently is. And that's why I want to look at board game mechanics and RPGs. There are some board game mechanics that are like, oh my god, I want to see this in an RPG, right? And it's also why I harp so much on the difference between freeform roleplay and playing an RPG. It's like, is Lasers and Feelings an RPG? Or is it more freeform roleplay based on some like, can I do this? Can I do this? Is this possible? Big question mark. Is this possible to do? Right? I'm a theories person. I'm a theoretical model person. I studied linguistics. Linguistics is all about theoretical models of something that people take for granted, of something extremely complex that people take for granted, right? Language. And so, yeah. But is there a border? Is the question. Is there a border? Right? Or is it a spectrum? Can I do this? So I can say something like, whose line is it anyway? Or now the like Dropout, which is very popular. They're obviously freeform improv, freeform quote unquote role play, right? Lasers and Feelings, yes, exactly. It's a cool idea of a game, but they are, at the end of the day, there are rules. You're using border loosely as a term. Okay, yeah, fair. Is there actually a dividing line? I don't think so, but there might be a border region, right? I have no idea what to think about that title. It is meant to be comedic. It is meant to be a bit, right? You're supposed to think about it. Right, but there are rules. There is a moderator, right? Is it possible to turn this into a tetrahedron? Now we're going like wild. Now we're going very wild, like this, and have moderator. Is this possible? Right? So these are the kind of things I think about, which is why I haven't actually finished designing a game yet, because I always circle back to something like this, like the really high level theoretical model theory of everything kind of questions that circle in my head, because that's my training. Any spectrum will have points where some people say, yes, it's close to X, so that counts as X, while others will disagree. Yeah, exactly. I've heard of Coyote and Crow. Is that a game? Or is that a concept? There are two actions you can take in Lasers and Feelings. Guess what they are? I came across it while character building Coyote and Crow. Is it a game? Let me check real quick. It feels like some sort of like native. Oh, it is. Is it? Is it Native American inspired? Please be. Yes, it is. Okay, yeah. Okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Huh. I might have to look into that. Um, the publishing. Oh, my bad. Yeah, it's an actual TTRPG. Indigeno futurist TTRPG set in an alternate America that was never colonized by Europeans. Oh, oh, that is really cool. That that's amazing. I'll have to check that out. Um, who is Zaya? But yeah, so we get all of these. So you could say absolute freeform storytelling. Perhaps not RP, but like maybe storytelling, right? Would be up here. And then like the improv games. Let me use a different color for this. Right up here. That's not a very distinct color. This, right up here. Board game is over here. But then you could also have like Gloomhaven is somewhere here, right? Descent, the board game Descent, is somewhere over here. Whose line is it anyway? Or Dropout is somewhere over here because they do have a moderator. There are some rules slash prompts, so it's not 100% free. But they lean very far towards just freeform, do what you want, right? And so I think you can build a model like this, making RPG part of a much larger system. It just feels like a lot of designers don't want that. Again, I don't know why, because it impedes on their auteur authority, maybe. I guess I don't know. I just see it a lot, right? That makes sense to you? Okay. That's good. So there's also things like, I don't know, Once Upon a Time, which is somewhere here, right? It's a card game where you tell a story and use the cards, but then there's fixed rules of when you can play cards, how you can play cards, how people take turns, right? Which game is right in the middle? Right in the middle? I don't know. Everyone is John. Everyone is John, right in the middle. The perfect balanced game. I don't know. Maybe. Right, but it's like it's so much bigger. And because it's so much bigger, there's so much more design space. Right, there's solo RPGs which don't have the moderator, which fall more on this end of the spectrum, whereas more traditional slash classic RPGs fall on this end of the spectrum. Right, rules light is more up here, rules heavy is more down here if you want to go that way. And so on and so forth, right? I think part of some designers not engaging theory is they lack confidence in grasping theory. After all, in a lot of people's background, theory was this big thing only super smart people engage in, which is surprising. Just surprising because RPG theory was a very bottom-up approach, a very bottom-up endeavor. It was catalyzed by the Forge, By the way, I've mentioned the Forge several times now. So the Forge was an internet forum in the early 2000s, back when those were still a thing. Full for of indie RPG designers, and I think it's part of it. I don't think it's the whole story. Yeah, definitely. By now, definitely, because the Forge has been dead for about 10 years or more, right? It was closed down in the mid 2010s. RPG Forge. Yes, it was just called The Forge, and the web address was indierpgs.com or something like that. The archives might still be there, right? You might still be able to read everything, but the discussions themselves have died down on there because the website was closed. But that's where, or like the GNS theory came from. That's where the whole idea of narrative theory came from. The core story, the idea of that, the big three questions. A lot of these theoretical concepts that came from the Forge, and that was done simply by looking at RPGs that were developed back in the time, which were very heavily, a lot of them, especially D&D, which was already big, because around that time, 3rd edition came out, right? So it was a lot of, we're trying to simulate the world, or we're trying to play the game, and then a lot of people are unhappy with saying, "No, that's too limiting. What else can RPGs be?" So the Forge really pioneered the idea of ludological analysis of really theory of gameplay of RPGs, of mechanisms and such that you can have. And I visited that a few times. Yeah, I was on there daily. I was on there so much back when it was active. So a lot of my formative RPG design ideas and like viewpoints and opinions and training really came from that place. Which, if anyone is familiar with the Forge and the kind of ideas that were floated on there, and then looks at me and my ideas, you might be able to tell, yeah, okay, that comes from there. But that was like 10-15 years ago, so I've grown since then. People have grown since then. If I recall correctly, when I made my PDF character sheet for Slug, joke system by the creator of Fludge, the creator of Fudge posted it there. Ooh! Dang. That's big. Did I ever share that with you on Blue Sky? I don't know. I don't recall if you've ever shared the character. I think so, but I'm not sure. Maybe. I don't know if it was your. I think I saw a character sheet for that. I honestly cannot recall. Maybe. But you're free to share it again. But yeah, so this whole big idea of what even is a role-playing game? What does it mean to play a role-playing game? What does it mean to design one? I'll send you some links on Blue Sky. All right, awesome. I'll check them out later. Was probably me then. Okay. Right. So what is all of that? I've got some Fate character sheets too. Ooh, cool. Yeah, do share them. Right. So that's some of the big issues I think of. Which, are they useful? Not yet. A lot of theory isn't useful at the beginning, right? Because all you're doing is organizing, or categorizing and such. But then afterwards, it can become really, really useful. I think that's another big part. A lot of people are looking at RPG design theory or RPG theory in general, and they say, like, how is this useful? We don't need this. We'll never need this. And then they just don't do it. it's incredibly useful. Like, holy heck, there are some theories already that really help shape my design, where I say if I didn't have this bit of theory, I'd be so lost. Right? One of them being the MAD, the MDA, sorry, mechanics, dynamics, aesthetics theory, which is a very good bit of theory. It's a very short paper as well, and it's like half a dozen pages only, 7 pages or so. So it's very easy to get through, and it really helps with with understanding what game design is, its limits and its responsibilities and its impact. And also just looking at things like video game design and board game design. Like, there's so much theory in video game design. There's a yearly conference on video game design, right? Where lots of people speak and hold presentations and have discussions and such. That's valuable stuff. That's all theory. But we don't have that for RPGs. And that's a loss to the entire hobby, really, is what I think. So that's where I want to go. But yeah, prep from a designer's perspective. So that ties into this as well, of like the responsibilities of a designer. If you are designing a game that is meant for one-shots, and then you don't actually put anything in the game to help with one-shots, to help prep one-shots, to generate one-shots, your game is incomplete. I'm just gonna say it. Your game is incomplete. Right? If you're making a game that's mainly used to run one-shots, meant to be used for one-shots, for a longer campaign, okay, I can understand that you might want to look at the table, to look at the GM, what they want to play, etc. All good. But for one-shots, if you don't give the GM something where they can run this game after, I don't know, 15 minutes, 30 minutes of reading it, with it, like, just spend that time reading it and then run a one-shot without needing years or decades of GMing and storytelling experience, your game is incomplete. Yeah. So that's that. Which is also like, it's a lot of these oversights and gaps in design. And I think, and I also put this opinion on Blue Sky, Rule Zero did a lot of harm. Because it shifted the discussion about RPGs away from design toward game masters. And suddenly, there's this XKCD comic about like a really complex, fragile structure supported by this one tiny pillar. Pillar, is it this one? No, it's not. How do I search for? You may have seen it. Bridge types? No. There's too many XKCDs to be able, but I'm forgetting. I love that XK Rule Zero. I'm forgetting the term. So Rule Zero means is something that was put in a lot of early games and is still being put into games. Which basically says if any part of this game doesn't work for you, feel free to change it, or just feel free to add rules or take away rules. It's your game, you can do what you want. Which, like, okay, but the way that Rule Zero has been so formalized and has now become a core assumption of RPGs, Right. So essentially the XKCD I cannot find it right now, but it's like you have a bunch of blocks like this, and then you have this one tiny thing, and you have this huge structure, this really complex structure that is built on there, right? And all of these very complex, very fragile things, and just a tiny nudge would make the whole thing collapse. And then you have this one pillar that's integral is something ridiculously fragile itself, or something that should never be a supporting pillar, right? And for RPG design, this is like great GM. This is this tiny little pillar that is holding up all of modern RPG design. Right? That's the state of it. But as you're illustrating, you need to know if you're removing the critical pillar. Yeah. It should never have been built this way, is what I'm saying. And Rule 0 pushed the whole structure into making GMs into this critical pillar. Right? And that's a problem. That is a problem. I need to find that XKCD and put it into my opinion thread. Oh my goodness. It is. Too much work rests on the GM, and it's not just that too much work rests on the GM. It's that work resting on the GM is a core assumption now in RPGs. Right? It's like it's the idea that the GM will fix it. Right? I don't have to design a complete game, the GM will fix it. I don't need to read the rules, the GM will do it. I don't need to, a lot of this, I don't need to engage with the game on its own terms as a game. The GM will do it. Right? That's the state of it right now. And Rule 0 did a huge part pushing the entire RPG scene into this direction. And it's emblematic in some design where you're like, yeah, I'm just gonna give you, I don't know, 3 rules to run this game. Have fun. The great GM will fix it. The great GM will fill the gaps. The great GM will write all the great adventures. You have fun. Right? Yes. Work resting on the GM as a function of game design. Yes. That's what I mean. So this is RPG design. This is RPG design. Right? Like the whole idea of a great GM can turn a bad game good, and then that incentivizes designers to create lots of bad games, lots of incomplete games, because the GM will take care of it, right? Der Angriff Steiners wird das schon richten. To quote that famous bunker scene. And like the GM will take care of it. I don't have to design a complete game. I don't have to give any tips. I don't have to give any tools. GM's got it handled. Right? And that's horrific. That's absolutely horrific. So yeah, that's what I feel like a lot of RPG design is about. Okay, I found an edited version of it. I might just take that one and edit it further myself. Hold on. Is there an original? What's the original here? Dependency. It's called dependency. Okay. So the let me save this one real quick, and then I'll show you what I mean. But it's the I'll show you the original. Um, Let me put that. Can I put that in here as an image? Add as image. Uh, come on. My mouse does not like clicking. There we go. Make it slightly bigger. This one, right? So it says it's this really complex, heavy block, like this tower of blocks, like all modern infrastructure, all modern digital infrastructure, and this tiny pillar to the side, a project some random person in Nebraska has been thanklessly maintaining since 2003. Right? So this is, and then the way I see it is this huge complex infrastructure thing is RPG design, and this little block on the right is great GMs. Right. So that's what I'm talking about. It's about software, yeah, but it applies to so many things, yeah, and that's how I see it. That's really how I see it. So if people, oh sorry, there's a great GM turning a bad game good is the well experienced, well read GM will pull in outside knowledge and apply information others have already provided. If people really want to delegate game design, then perhaps people should be investing in core systems and building on those. Yeah. Many in jokes going on that diagram. One in Nebraska is not known from software. Oh, Nebraska is not known for software. Oh, okay, fair. And you did a good job drawing that from memory. I tried. I just remember that there's all of these tiny little branching blocks up top that look like, oh, you don't want even a breath to go near that because the whole thing will collapse. But yeah, thank you. Ads are gonna start any second now, so I will take. I don't know. I'll just sit here, drink some more. I need to drink. I need to finish this 2-liter bottle. Holy heck. But this is really how I do see it right now. A lot of designers are okay with delivering incomplete designs, simply because the GM will handle it. And sadly, it's a very accurate diagram. It is. Right, when outages happen, was it when Cloudflare craps, then all of the internet dies, or when AWS craps, as happened recently, then again everything dies, right? So yeah, it's a thing. Let me edit this right now, actually. Where do I have it?
Endure. In enduring, grow strong.
S and Azure servers. Yeah, there's a lot that can go wrong. Oops. Need to add a pure white thing in the background. Come on, let me. There we go. Okay. That's filled in. Now I Oops, I did not want to take away the border. Okay, and now I write. I need this to be black. PTR. Okay, what? I need this slightly bigger. And maybe a slightly different font. Do I have one that looks a bit more handwriting? Oh, I have so many fonts. I bought 2 font packs or so, 3 font packs that have over like 2,000 fonts together or something. Is this good? I don't know. That's too. It doesn't need to be super. Okay. So with this one, make it slightly larger. Can I move this, please? Mouse? Ah, my mouse hates me. Okay. Great. PMs. Are the ads over? The ads are over. Welcome back. We're just doing this real quick. And then which font did I have? Big. There we go. Great. There. Aha. How's that? Save this as dependency. Boom, done. Okay. Then I can post that on Blue Sky. But yeah, that's essentially how I see it right now. Nice. Thank you. Yeah, and it's which is why I'm looking for, and every now and then someone comes up with some cool ideas. Like there's this one book, and now it's I think 2 or 3 books by Monty Cook, surprisingly, who designed an adventure, or not who designed, but like Monty Cook Games, they brought out a book of adventures, and he said he had this very same idea of it's game night, your friends are gonna be over in half an hour or an hour. You don't have time to write a huge game. What do? Right? Or maybe your friends will be over in 15 minutes. Oh, heck, what do you do? And so he brought out a book called Weird Discoveries, which is a book of short adventures. And the idea of each of these adventures is that you can prep it within about 15 minutes, which is an amazing idea. And each is 4 pages or so, or 6 pages. Let me check real quick. But the idea is, and he uses the book layout to help. RPGs, Cipher System. Weird Discoveries. 10 instant adventures. Oops. right? So it starts out with a bit of tips on like, oh, improv game mastering. How do you do it? What do you actually do? Sure, you can read that on your own time. But then it's 6 pages each, 3 double spreads. So the idea is you read the first double spread, right? Sounds about how I treat articles in The Onion and sections in The Onions are dumb world. Dang. But the idea is they provide world facts, weird stuff, and hook the players. Ah, okay. But how this basically works is you have a first double spread, which gives you a very brief summary of the adventure, gives you some details that you need to keep in mind, right? And formatted with like some salient points, a checklist essentially, starting point wrap up. And then it gives you the adventures in this game, in this book, I'll use keys, which is something that the player characters must find and use somewhere else in order to advance the adventure. So it helps give the adventure some structure. And then the next double spread is the adventure itself. And the idea is once you have read the first double spread with a background of the adventure, you only need this double spread in the middle to run the entire thing. No page flipping, no looking things up, no nothing. You only need that, and all the information you need is on there. Right? And then if you have a bit more time, there's a third double spread, which with more details that you can use to embellish the adventure if you have time for it. Right? And when I looked at this, I was like, holy heck, that's a really good format, Matt. Can we formalize it? Can we formalize this format and make it applicable to all sorts of adventures to help people write? Because there are endeavors of writing short adventures, short, like easy to prep, easy to run adventures. There's also something called the 5-Room Dungeon, which is a cool format, definitely. And there's a lot to be done with it. But it is a little bit more limiting because it's a dungeon format, right? It doesn't have to be a dungeon, but it does need to be 5 distinct encounters / scenes, which is, yeah, it's definitely a good starting place. And the 5-Room Dungeon is very valuable. But something like this Weird Discoveries thing is like, yeah, but you're also putting the book layout and such into consideration, right? And things like, okay, you have a first double spread that you read for preparation, takes you 15 minutes, understand the adventure. Then you have the second double spread, which is the only thing you need. All the information you need to run the adventure is on here. And then afterwards, you have an extra double spread for extra info, or if you want to develop this further, put it in a campaign, whatever, right? So this is also something that I feel like game systems can help provide. Something that game, like as part of your game design, right? That you can have something like that in there, perhaps help GMs generate something like this, right? So that is a hope. That is kind of what I'm thinking about when I look at this. I meant the Monte Cook format, but also yes, the 5-Room Dungeon. Oh, yeah. There are some people who actually consider things like book layouts and such. Like, how does that work? Because the worst things are the ones where you have to flip back and forth constantly. And official D&D published adventures are like on the opposite end of things you certainly should never do when prepping your own adventures, because holy heck, they do so many things wrong. But because they are popular, right? People entering the hobby think that this is the gold standard. So, it's like, yeah, it's So these are some topics that I kind of want to talk about. Some other things that have to do with game design. Probability. I don't know if I actually start talking about math and probability, how many people would be willing to listen. And I have to preface this with I'm not a math teacher. I'm just very interested in it. And I've done a lot of probability math simply as part of improving game design. Been doing game design for so long that I had to. And also, I was the data person on several of the jobs I've done. Things like Excel. Like a lot of people in my previous jobs had no idea how to use Excel. I was the data dude. I was the person who collated all the data, who did all the calculations on it to draw useful information out of it. And that also requires, statistics, which is part of the same field. There was the bane of trying to deal with when writing my own system. It's tough with a generic system to keep things close to each other in order to minimize page flipping. Yeah, it is. It definitely is a challenge because you have to keep thinking, is an RPG manual a teaching manual or is it a reference manual? And it cannot be both at the same time. Right? And different people think it should be one over the other. Like I think it should be a teaching manual first because you can do reference in other ways, right? It's possible to do reference in other ways as an additional section in the book. But yeah, it is difficult. Clearly, I will whatever numbers on die rolls to find breakpoints, and that opened my eyes to why D&D uses so many die faces, minimize abuse of the probabilities. Yeah. There's also like very funny math on exploding dice. So Savage Worlds, for instance, uses both dice steps and exploding dice. So every stat and every skill is expressed as a die face. So you might have something like, I don't know, persuasion, right? Persuasion, and that is a D4. And then you might have something like sneak, and that is a D8, right? And so on. And so you go through D4, 6, 7, 8, 10, 12. That's how your stats are and skills. And because you have exploding dice, which means if you roll the highest possible value on your die, you roll it again and add it to whatever you rolled previously. Because of that, there are certain specific breakpoints where a lower value die has a higher chance of rolling a high number than a higher value die, right? Which is like, the probability differences were very, very small, but they still existed. So for instance, a D4 has a higher chance of rolling a 5 with exploding dice than a D6. Right. Which is like, it's easy to calculate that if you have what is it, or what is it, roll at least a 5 or roll exactly a 5? I forgot what the exact phrasing was, but like when you look at the graph, it's like chances of rolling, I think it was rolling at least something because the graphs just kept going up. Right, the chance of rolling at least a 5 on a D4 with exploding dice is 25%. Was it that? I don't remember what exactly the formulation was, and I'm not gonna do all the math now. Otherwise, we'll be here for like half an hour while I go through where I reverse engineer what the actual the probability break was. 12.5% for exactly a 5, yes. And for a d6, it's 16.666 for exactly a 5, which is a higher chance. So that couldn't have been it. That's where I got stuck. Or was it rolling a 6? There is, I think there's a graph somewhere online. Or other tools. No. For 5, for at least 5, it's 75% times 25%. I think that was it. Something along those lines. Anyway, but the point is 18.75. Okay. I'm not doing this at my head at midnight, Dan. No. 18.75. And then rolling rolling at least I don't know. I don't know what it was exactly, but there were these breaks where if you had a d4, right, the probability goes up to here suddenly, and the probability of a d6 is underneath it just very slightly before going up, right? Like this. So, and that happens with every die, and then the d8 is also at the 8 or something, it breaks, and then the d10 at the 10, and so on. Something happened there. I don't recall exactly. It's been a while since I last looked at the numbers. And I don't know exactly what it was talking about, like the exact conditions. Anyway, probability, very important in RPG design. Also things like, what is the difference between cards and dice, right? And so on, cards are conditional probability, dice aren't. So there's a lot of this happening. So, which is why probability is important. If you want to design anything that has a randomizer in it. Yeah. So it behooves game designers to learn a bit about probability. So that's also another topic I could be talking about. Speaking of being after midnight, it appears my bedtime has shifted again, closer to where I wanted. Audie's telling me to go to bed. Oh yeah. It was great chatting with you. Yeah, no, it was really good having you here. Thanks for hanging out. And yes, please do go to bed on time. I don't think I'll go for much longer. It's 2 p.m. I started later than I wanted to. So this stream also a little bit shorter than usual. But yeah, thanks for dropping by and having a good chat. And yeah, I'll also wind down. So yeah, thanks for having me, of course. Always appreciate it. So let's see, are there any final thoughts? Board game design mechanics, design patterns, prep from a designer's perspective, probability. Maybe something like, adventure writing and world building. And then something like GM's toolbox. Which also, like, the fact that GMs take it easy. Yeah, good night. Have a good rest. like the fact that GMs essentially have to collect their own toolbox, build their own toolbox instead of having it provided by games is a shame. You know, so it's basically circling back to the same point again and again. I just realized I wanted to change. I need to change it slightly. Let me just finish. Actually, no, I think yeah, it's coming back to the same. But I think right now I have some topics to talk about. If it's not my own designs that I'm doing on stream, then yeah, definitely something to talk about here. Yeah, and then other like linguistics, mainly language learning, because that's what I specialized in. First, oh my, welcome, Claire. Congrats on first. Holy heck, it's been 3.5 hours, but yeah. How are you doing, Claire? Welcome, welcome. How goes? We're just kind of ranting. Yes, is the squirrel. Welcome. We're kind of ranting about the state of RPGs right now. And looking at things I can talk about. Thank you for the head pat. I ranted for about 3 hours. It's been a ride. But we got some good ideas going. And mainly I do want to continue Friday streams. Stream on Fridays. And do this. So I talk about RPGs, talk about their designs, etc. Because there's some things I am excited about that I do want to explore and talk about. Yeah. Thoughts? Is there anything? I don't think. Yeah. I was actually going to call it sooner rather than later. It's nearing 2:30 p.m. and I haven't had food yet. So, sorry for you to pop in this late, so this close to the end, I guess. Oh yeah, basically just collecting some topics. All good. I do want to try and stream earlier as well, but like I need to get my insomnia under control somehow. Yeah. Let me save this. I need to save this. Okay. Yeah, so I don't know what else. Like some topics that I feel like might need some more preparation. Right, to talk about so that people don't don't fall asleep, essentially. Probability. There's also there's this other VTuber who is actually a math teacher, and I would love to do a stream where we just talk about probability and the math behind it. And I'm hoping that they can bring a lot more insight into it than I can. Because again, I'm not a math teacher. I'm not any sort of mathematician. Like I had to use some math for linguistics. But whatever I learned, like most of the stuff I learned about probability was out of my own interest for game design. And it probably pales to what an actual math teacher can do. So yeah, I'm still kind of trying to broach the topic. Yeah. Something else though that is way out of this, which I have talked about before, which is another topic I'm very, very interested in, is music theory. Music theory. Being, the polygonal tool. There we go. It's down a bit. Which is also very fascinating and I think very misunderstood, very unknown. And I feel like at least on a beginner level, I can say quite a bit about that. I have talked about it in the past, but that was like 2 or 3 years ago, where I did some music theory streams, and I think there's more. And I think now I know how to talk about it a bit more with some examples. For instance, I just did, just in my own time, a very quick back of the napkin music theory analysis of the Soviet national anthem. And like why it hits so hard. And there are actually musical reasons like that you can analyze with music theory on why the Soviet anthem slaps. And things like that, right? Like why, what does the music actually do? I'm currently in the process of learning. I watched a couple videos last night because I've been wanting to learn how to read notes. Ah, yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, reading notes is, it's been a while. Yeah. And people who can sight read, like I cannot sight read. I can kind of sight read when it comes to singing. Like, yeah, no, I can sight read when it comes to singing. Like, if you give me a piece of music that I need to sing, I can do it fairly well. For piano, does I want to play piano and keyboard? Yeah. Yeah, piano is a lot of fun. But okay, then yeah, definitely. Music theory. It really depends on what I am interested in. I could totally see myself, like I might just do some music theory streams in the coming weeks. And on the side, I collect some ideas for like game design streams and such. And then once I have enough topics for game design, I can then switch over to do game design talk, or I can just switch it up randomly. I don't know. Have a spinny wheel, have a poll on stream. Like, what are we gonna talk about today? Maybe there's ideas. But yeah, definitely. That's also something I am interested in, and something that I have learned as well. And I started learning it back when the internet wasn't really a thing. So I had to like piece together bits here and there from various like forums and whatever my teacher, whatever I could get out of my music teachers and such, because It's like, where do you enter in music theory? I've been browsing keyboards since I had a lot of fun playing my friend's piano this week. Ooh, nice, nice. If it is your first keyboard, don't get one that's too expensive. My tip for you, you can consider getting an 88 key keyboard. Which is basically a digital piano. Or if you're really just trying out, you can get like, I don't know, a cheap $20 one, just to try it out. And then if you feel, yeah, this is something for you, then you can invest in a bigger 88 key digital piano or keyboard. But it doesn't have to be super expensive. That's definitely my advice. It doesn't have to have amazing sound quality. It doesn't have to have 3,000 instruments. So yeah, that is something to do. Yeah, so that could definitely be a possible thing. Is there anything else I could talk about that I feel like I have some expertise in? Beyond these, not really. Yeah, I think this is already plenty. It would also help a lot if I had a small. There are keyboard, like, I don't know what they're called, like MIDI, not full keyboards, but like small piano keyboards that are only like 2 octaves, but you connect them to your computer and then you can play notes or do things. And I don't have one of those. I only have big ones that I cannot put on my desk because it'll collapse the desk. Yeah, I'll have a think. I had one on my Throne back when Throne still worked for me. It doesn't work here in Taiwan, so I'll have to see what I can do. I think I took everything down. I'll check. But yeah. I think that's it. So basically Fridays is just gonna be free talking about whatever. Might do a poll, might do a spinny wheel, we'll see. And then yeah. Have another stream a week where I can just yap. Probably not a bad thing. Okay. I think I'm gonna slowly wind down. So let me have a gander at who is streaming. Sounds good? Nice. Okay, let's see. Who is up? Oh, there's quite a few people. Where do we go? Let's go say hi to who haven't we said hi to in a while? I think Code. Code has only been going for 3.5 hours, so that means she's probably gonna stream for another 8. So let's go say hi to Code. Code streams a lot of old retro games and does a lot of achievement hunting and such, which is a lot. And also, she streams more than she sleeps. It feels like. So, yeah. Okay, raid code channel. Yes. Okay. All right. Yeah. So thank you everyone for coming by today. I know a few good places. Oh, I'm currently learning about. Okay. What was I saying? Yes, thank you to everyone who came by today. Very, very much appreciated. I do hope that I'll be able to stream. That is the plan. That is what I'm gonna try and achieve, to stream Fridays now, where we just have these sessions. Yeah, thank you, Chica, for raiding earlier. And then yeah, go say hi to Code for me. I hope you all have a good time zone. And yeah, thanks for coming. Much appreciated. Stay hydrated, take care, and bye-bye.